Hey everyone, Jim Branscome here for the Cinematic Void vlog. For this episode, whatever you want to call it, I'm gonna try something new that I've been thinking about doing for a while, and this is gonna be like a sub-series in the vlog. Is that what you call it? I don't know, but this is part of what I'm calling In the Mouth of Cinemadness. What that has to do with is I'm going to talk about movies that were very influential on me, not only in getting into film, but which kind of, sometimes in a short or long about way helped, inform what I do with Cinematic Void. And the first movie I want to talk about is George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead.
Now, the first time I became aware of Night of the Living Dead, I think I somehow heard of it, I don't know, but it played on TV one night and my parents happened to be watching it, but it wasn't like the traditional Night of the Living Dead, because everyone famously knows the movie fell in the public domain, which means plenty of people were just putting out and fucking around with it and stuff. And a version I saw was someone had redubbed it. And I remember something about, like, there's the scene where Ben's getting ready to kind of like nail up the house, and he's looking for nails, and there's like someone dubbed in, it's like, oh, you gotta feed all these people, I guess this will do, and he's holding the nails. I have no idea what version or what parody or what the fuck that was, but it was playing TV, and I just remembered, regardless of it being kind of a jokey redub of Night of the Living Dead, it still terrified me. A lot of the reason why I was terrified, and it has to do with that opening sequence where Bill Heinzman attacks Judith O'Dea and the cemetery thing, is because pretty close to where I grew up, probably like maybe a quarter of a mile away from where my parents live and where I grew up, there was a cemetery. So the fact that there's this dead guy in a cemetery, and although slowly, very capable of walking from the cemetery, could actually walk to my house. So I had this irrational fear of the zombies, or the people that were buried in that cemetery by that church that my parents lived near, would like rise up from the grave and come attack the house and eat me. And it scarred me. I used to have reoccurring dreams about zombies, and all I watched in Night of the Living Dead was maybe like 10-15 minutes of it tops as a kid. So, but it really stayed with me until, around 8th grade. I remember, I think Elite Entertainment had done the first like serious restoration on Night of the Living Dead, and at, I think it was Kmart of all places, had that restoration on VHS.
It's the name brand, and it's a saving. It's a good day to be at Kmart. Kmart, we've got it and we've got it good. At Kmart, we've got it and we've got it good.
It was a 2-tape set. The one tape had Night of the Living Dead fully restored, and the second tape had, I think, some trailers and a bunch of stuff. It had a short movie called Night of the Living Bread, and around that time I was like getting interested in horror movies, but I was still very scared about watching them, and I was very specifically scared about watching Night of the Living Dead. But I bought it. I sat and looked at the cover, which had the little dead girl on it, the famous like poster image, or one of the famous poster images, and I just like, I guess I'm gonna do it. And I sat down and I watched it, and while there was things about it that scared me, this was the first movie that kind of opened the door and let me see kind of the inner workings of how filmmaking works. And I'm not trying to be derogatory by saying this, but because Night of the Living Dead was a lower budget independent film, some of the the Hollywood gloss that covers up a lot of the mystique of how things are made was kind of gone, and it kind of gave me understanding that like I was watching a film and I could kind of see the nuts and bolts behind it. It didn't detract from it because the movie's incredible and has stayed with me to this day, but Night of the Living Dead kind of opened my door for getting into and trying and loving more horror movies, but also really interested me into getting into filmmaking. So through high school on, because of Night of the Living Dead, I had aspirations to get into filmmaking, and I eventually went to film school when did I go to film school? 2001, I think. But when I was in film school, I took a film course, and we were shooting on 16mm black and white, kind of Night of the Living Dead was shot in black and white, and it made sense to me to shoot a tribute, homage, whatever you call it, to Night of the Living Dead, which we called We All Scream, because it was about some zombies breaking into someone's house and they want ice cream. You know, we all scream for ice cream. Yes, I know it's a very bad pun, but because Night of the Living Dead, George Romero, is kind of when I started understanding auteurism, or film authorship through directors. Obviously, I've heard of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas because those movies were fucking huge, but learning about George and seeking out his other movies like Dawn of the Dead and really wanting to see Martin, things like that, made me think in like genre filmmaking, and the same way a lot of people think, oh, this is a Spielberg film or whatever. And by getting into Romero, it got me into all kinds of horror stuff. And like, there's obviously the studio stuff, but because Night of the Living Dead was this independent thing, I kind of like that vibe. So I kind of more or less seeked out, like, not necessarily the Hollywood-made horror movies, but things that were independently produced or like regional horror. And, you know, I think the next filmmaker I kind of got into after George was David Cronenberg. And like, you know, basically because of Dawn of the Dead, I kind of learned about Dario Argento, so I was like, hey, I should check out his film since he was a producer on it. And it was just a learning education. So I basically, everything Cinematic Void, everything that's me in loving film and filmmaking and genre film and cult cinema comes from watching Night of the Living Dead way too young and being scared shitless because I live near a cemetery and was damn sure that zombies were going to come out of it and eat me. Thanks for watching. Till next time, see you in the void.